people are very upset with the censorship of this week's episode of One Piece, but before I dive into that, I want to talk about the emotional journey, the emotionally charged nature of this episode, because going into it, I knew what I was going to witness, I knew what was going to happen, but even then, I left the episode crying and bawling my eyes out. You can do whatever you want, you could call me a big baby, a crybaby, whatever, say, Chibi, are you really crying to a One Piece episode, or Kuma's backstory? Say whatever you want, but I'm someone that gets heavily invested and emotionally invested into a story that I'm getting into. Game, book, anime, movie, TV show, whatever, and it's something that I really love to do. Just being able to bond with characters, understand their emotional journey, and just be able to like feel sad for them, to understand the pain they go through. It's tragic, man. And this entire episode just shows being Kuma is legitimate pain. This man has experienced nothing but just pain his entire life, and somehow, despite all of the hurdles and trials and tribulations that's thrown his way, he can still smile to some degree towards Bonney in the middle of this episode. He can still crack a smile, and he can show genuine happiness to others, and that is a rare feat that not many people would be capable of if they were put in Kuma's shoes. We gotta look at just what has happened to him just briefly, just naming a few things. This man has legitimately lost his family, his OG family, his mother and father, taken away from his hometown at birth, basically, thrown into slavery, had to meet the absolute cruelty of celestial dragons. His father, in his dying moments when he was trying to cheer up his son, is just literally silenced because he was just too loud by a celestial dragon, just completely got rid of him. And then obviously Kuma had to experience like an island raid and realizing that he was becoming the hunted and all that. And then he had to see the cruelty of the world. He joined the Revolutionary Army. You know, he got to bond with Jenny quite a bit. And then as time progressed, she was kidnapped, and he found out that obviously she was kidnapped for 2 years by a celestial dragon, and there was nothing he legitimately could do about it. And what makes it just so unsettling and sad is that after 2 years of not even seeing her and just wondering if he'll never see her again, she comes back, not just with her illness like this, just completely crystallized, this blue sapphire disease, but she has a child in tow. And there's just so much to really, like, analyze and talk about when it comes to that, but basically, it's very clear what Oda, as a writer, is painting as a picture, is that the celestial dragon that kidnapped her, or someone associated with the celestial dragon that kidnapped her, obviously gave her a baby. I don't think I need to spell it out. I can't say the exact words because, YouTube would instantly take down the video, but it's very clear what happened. And just the entire circumstance around Kuma's life and what he's had to deal with, and the people around him that has continuously been hurt, it's tragedy, man, and I cannot help but just feel sad, because we've had a lot of sad backstories, like some legitimately tragic backstories, like, you know, Nami's backstory, Robin's backstory, Chopper's backstory, Frankie's backstory, you get the point. But, like, out of any backstory that isn't, like, quote-unquote, a straw hat, okay? I would say that Kuma's backstory is easily one of the darkest, because, like, the overall, the implications of what Kuma's backstory means is just insane, especially when you just figure out how Bonney even came to be alive, how her birth even happened, and why she was born. It's some pretty dark stuff, like legitimately stuff that you don't normally see in a shonen manga in Weekly Shonen Jump. So seeing that within, you know, a series that's a shonen in a Weekly Shonen Jump is pretty insane. Even if it doesn't directly spell it out, it's very clear what's implying. If you're able to put A and B together, you know exactly what happened. And despite all of this, despite obviously the love that Kuma has for Jenny, and, you know, typically when this type of stuff happens within stories, the father figure, or in this case Kuma, would resent the actual individual Bonney, the child Bonney, because he might, you know, place all the blame, all the tragedy, everything he suffered within his life onto Bonney. Would that be fair? No, that wouldn't be a good thing. But what I'm saying is typical tropes with these type of stories is that Kuma would instantly, to deal with his trauma, deal with his sadness and frustration, he would have instantly went after Bonney and just made her life a living hell. But he didn't do that. He raised her. He raised this little girl that was legitimately a daughter of some form of celestial dragon that obviously has tormented Kuma's entire life. That entire organization has. But he still took Bonney under his wing and raised her like he was legitimately her father. It's beautiful, it's sweet, it's tragic, it's sad. There's just so many emotions. Like I said, I left this episode with tears in my eyes and bawling. It was such a good episode. Like, it is, the themes and the messaging here is so good. It presents a very powerful character, a very powerful male character, and a father figure at that. You don't need to necessarily have strong physical strength to be a powerful individual. Kuma's mental capacity for empathy, emotional weight, and being able to just crack a smile is something that honestly is just inspiring in of itself. He is a great character, hands down probably one of the best characters within One Piece. Like, I'm just gonna say, you might disagree with me on that, that's completely fine, but legitimately, there is a lot of depth to his character. You can really sit down and just think about certain scenes with him from, you know, pre-time skip to where we're at now, and think about just, like, how much importance he legitimately has had to the story that just a lot of people didn't realize, and that's what makes it so fantastic. It makes you look back at scenes where, like, in Sabati, where Luffy lost his entire crew. We've known this for a while, like, Kuma obviously wanted to save them, but it makes you look at all of these scenes with a very different context, with different glasses on, and be like, man, it's just, you know for a fact when he did that to Luffy, and he separated the entire crew, you know he was probably crying inside. Like, he legitimately was upset, because he probably doesn't want to do that. He especially doesn't want to do that to Dragon's son. He would never want to do something like that, and it makes it just so sad, and that's what I love. It's what I legitimately love about Kuma's character, because every scene he's involved in, and even scenes that he is assumed to be involved in, makes it just so much more fascinating. But with that being said, though, we need to talk about the censorship before I dive any further into this episode and talk about the content that is within. We need to talk about this right here. So let's get into it. So what you're looking at here is the anime scene of Bonney when she's 5 years old in this week's episode of One Piece. It's basically around the 1620 mark, as you can see here in the episode. It showcases how old Bonney is, and she's basically becoming a ruffian at a very early age. More into this in a moment, but basically, this gesture, obviously, it's very clear that it is censored, and if you go into the manga panel that actually released in Weekly Shonen Jump, you can see what she's doing right here. So yes, this is clear indication that it is just straight up censorship by Toei Animation, which is legitimately odd, and let me explain that. I don't know if there has been an actual middle finger scene in the anime of One Piece. If anyone can, like, showcase that, please do so, if they can link me to that or whatever. But Toei has done middle fingers. They have. Even in the last, like, 10 or so years, I believe they have. Like, they recently made, like, a CGI series that had, like, a middle finger being shown. And even Dragon Ball has had middle fingers in it, which is strange. This is a very strange form of censorship, especially when you factor in the broadcasting slot. Now, Toei never directly stated that they changed broadcasting slots to have less censorship, but it's heavily implied, because for those that don't know, in Japan, broadcasting slots, you know, if you have a higher broadcasting slot late at night, that means that they're able to get away with a lot more. Like, for instance, if you're someone that has watched, let's say, Cartoon Network on TV, you know that Adult Swim comes on late at night because it's for adults. Kids are not going to be up late at night. And in this case, you know, One Piece getting a late broadcasting slot meant that it could theoretically get away with a lot more than it used to with a early morning, like Sunday morning cartoon broadcasting slot. So it's very strange to see censorship like this, especially when you go back like 2 or so episodes ago and you saw Kuma's father just get eviscerated right in front of him, and it's just like, holy crap, it extremely crazy, extremely violent, and that was shown. And so I'm just like, this is where we draw the line, because we have legitimately seen characters from Toei themselves. Like, if this was a thing systematically that they've never done, I'd be like, okay, this just is Toei. But they have shown middle fingers with characters in Dragon Ball, and movies as well. So it's just like, why? I don't understand it. This is the only form of censorship that I believe is in this episode, but it's a very questionable one. I mean, this could easily be added in like a BD, DVD release or One Piece to fix this. That's not really hard to fix, but it's just still a very strange thing to do. I would need to really look into like the last time Toei really did like, let's say, a middle finger for a shonen series, just to really kind of get a good grip on why this is happening. But regardless, this is censorship. Just hands down, that's what it is. And so, yeah, that's sad. This is definitely like a smudge on this episode. It doesn't take away with the quality and the emotionally charged moments of the episode, but it is definitely a smudge, because I just hate seeing censorship like this, especially when it's very clear that it feels like it was for no reason. Anyways, with that being said, though, we do need to talk about Bonney. So, this episode sets up Bonney's condition. That she has the sapphire disease, the blue gemstone disease, very similar to what her mother Jenny had. And it's implied that, Bonney, some shape or form in modern day of One Piece, it's gone. It's over. It's not there anymore. We don't see it anymore. So the question is, what happened? How did it disappear? And it makes you start thinking about, like, the connection with this disease, Bonney, Kuma, and everything. Is like, what exactly happened for it to go away? Was a cure found? Is Bonney still under the effects of this disease? Is she still going to die very soon? There's just a lot of questions about the entire situation. But the biggest takeaway from everything is that Bonney, she did not let this disease hold her back. Despite obviously being 5 years old and having to deal with basically living as a shut-in inside of a house, not being able to see sunlight ever again, she still has some form of optimistic outlook on life, which I think it's thanks to Kuma's overall involvement with her and being able to just bring joy into her life. If he was not a very supportive father figure within her life, then most likely she would have turned out very differently, and it just probably wouldn't have been good news for anyone. But the point still stands. It's very sad just to see the circumstance of what Bonney had to deal with at a very early age, and Kuma realizing he's dealing with a child that has a timer, so that she will not even live to 10 years old, which is just sad. It is absolute tragedy, because, as I talked about earlier on in this video, Kuma is someone that continues to lose things. He has lost so much back to back. Every time he has someone, a connection, a bond, family members, whatever, he just loses them. And being told straight up, like, oh yeah, your foster daughter is gonna die in 5 years, that's a punch in the face. And so, as any father that obviously would love their child, he would probably desperately do anything to be able to find a cure or something to be able to fix her. Which leads into the conundrum of why, or how. How did he get her to be fixed and all that? There's a lot of questions, but regardless, I love this episode of One Piece. It's great, it's emotional, I was crying, and I think that is exactly what you want when you watch a good anime. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching, be safe, stay healthy, Chibi out.